up, everybody? This is Ivelisse, a.k.a. the baddest bitch in the building, a.k.a. La Sicaria, and you're listening to Pro Wrestling Post Podcast.
You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Post Podcast with your host, Mark Madison. This episode's guest is Ivelisse. Visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer. And now, here's your host, Mark Madison.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mark Madison here with Lucha Underground's own Ivelisse. Welcome, Ivelisse, for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Now, training at an early age in Puerto Rico, what would you say some of the pros and cons of training at such a young age would have been for you?
I think clearly it's a big advantage. I was able to learn a lot. I was able to be quite knowledgeable at and still young in comparison to others that had started when late in their 20s or whatnot. So that creates a big gap that it just gave me an edge over others, because you would see me and I'm young, and so you would expect me to not know much of what I was doing, but I was already at a certain level, and that helped me have an edge over the other girls and whatnot, and just better for me to advance through my career from young. And I mean, for an example, I'm still in my 20s, and I've already 13 years of experience, have wrestled in so many different and actually most major companies, that's the pros. And then the cons are that I've missed out on a lot of things from young. It's a very hard business, so I've been sacrificing a lot for a very long time since I was 15. So it kind of, I've missed out on quite a lot of things, like the most simplest things, I would say, like even like going to a concert or whatever. Like there's a lot of things that I sacrificed for me, from starting at a young age. So the pros, gives me an edge over over the other wrestlers or whatnot, and the cons would be, all the sacrifices and everything that you have to go through in order to progress in the business.
If you had to do it all over, would you change a thing, or are you happy with the way things went? Because the advantages seem like they're pretty plentiful, right? Having that edge over everybody, but the cons are more, missing out on things. But
personal, yeah, on the personal level.
If you had a chance to change anything, do you regret necessarily or not necessarily? Some people say, I wouldn't change a thing.
That's a tough question, because I'm always debating that in my head, whether or not it was whether it was a good decision for me to start so young. But the thing is that I've always been such an ambitious person and hardworking person that I don't think I would have done it any other way, even if I had the choice. I'm very ambitious. I love to work hard for what I want, and I do whatever it takes. And I started when I was 15. To me, in my mind, the sooner I started, the better off I'd be, especially knowing that I had so many odds against me to fulfill my goal and my dream life and all that. So, I think regardless of the pros and cons and whatnot, I think I wouldn't change things.
Now, it's said that you were trained by some of the most legendary wrestlers out there, Carlos Colon, Savio Vega. What insight did they maybe give you at such a young age? I know it's so long ago. I mean, at 15, what can you really grasp then that you could say, looking back, that you're able to say, oh, this is what they were talking about? And maybe what was that experience like working under them?
Well, it was more of I know that it says on Wikipedia that or somewhere that I was trained by Carlos Colon, but I wasn't necessarily trained by them. I was more mentored at that time, more so Savio Vega.
Okay.
And clearly clearly that's priceless. But more so than anything, when I came to the U.S., I was when I went to SPW, I would say Norman Smiley was a big standout of the trainers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I did learn quite a lot of things from him, and I still use now. And the most important thing that I learned from him wasn't even like a in-ring wrestling thing. It was actually it's funny. He would always tell me to smile, Norman Smiley, because I don't really smile very much. I can come off kind of intense because I'm always so focused, so I look serious a lot, and people get intimidated or they just don't know how to read me or whatnot. So he would tell me to smile more. So that falls into the politicking side, to be more smile and this and that and whatever. So like he kind of helped me realize how, not necessarily politicking in the sense of like trying to be fake or whatever, but at the very least to look a little more welcoming.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
That helped me a lot. It sounds like a very small thing, but it really made a big difference.
Well, if people are having a hard time reading you too, but the thing is, did you ever feel that they want me to smile more, but does that take away from the character you're trying to?
Oh no, it's not in a character sense, in a like backstage or just.
Gotcha.
In general, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because there's a lot to be happy about.
Yeah, like the politicking side.
Now, how would you say? Now, it also mentions training in Chicago, independent scene, kind of built you up a little bit. Would you say training or competing on the independents from where it is today for you as opposed to where it was when you first got started? I mean, we're not talking like a huge amount of time, but the time itself, has it changed from your perspective? Even just whether it's watching how the men compete, how the women compete?
Honestly, the changes that I see are not necessarily on how people perform. People, honestly, it's just become a little more, spotty, more than so. But I mean, it's always been like that. That's what makes the indies different from like major companies, like TV companies or whatever. But what I see that is changed more, I would say in a positive way, is that they're giving women more spotlight. It's like I suppose they're being inspired by major companies to finally give women some credit and respect, or at least more opportunity. So I see that's a change that I didn't see before, and that's pretty cool.
So now you've had a chance to compete all over, whether it's North America. How many countries would you say you've had a chance to compete in?
I've been to China, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, England. UK.
Yeah.
So about 5, 6. I'll be going to Australia soon, so that probably will make it 7.
Fantastic. In the 6 countries that you've been in, what have you said the biggest difference in the crowds that you've had to compete in front of being?
What's the what crowd?
So what would you say? Everybody has a certain certain things I guess resonate with certain fans, right? Yeah. So some things, they like the spots, repeated spot after spot. Some it's more fan interaction. Yeah. What have you noticed as biggest differences for you from country to country?
Well, Mexico definitely was a really hard one for me to figure out. In the sense, which is ironic because I'm Hispanic and Puerto Rico is pretty similar to Mexico. Mm-hmm. But in Mexico, it's all about spot. But at the same time, you also work, like, it's almost like you forget what's happening in the ring and you have to work the crowd. So it's just a little confusing to find the formula that's supposed to work. But the crowd is very animated, so I love that about Mexico. They're very animated, and Puerto Rican crowd is super animated as well.
You find some crowds more sit on their hands a little bit until you're like in their face. I've heard of cases. So I've heard of some cases where some fans will just sit on their hands and you're like pulling teeth to try and get a reaction, and then not until you're leaning over the railing, growling in their face, are they scattering 10 rows. So have you ever noticed?
And even in Puerto Rico, like, fans are. But I also in Mexico as well. Like, the fans are very, very passionate fans. In Puerto Rico, they have instruments that they they use when the match is going on and whatnot. They use instruments to follow along with the action.
Oh, wow. What kind of instruments?
It's like there's like not drums. I don't know what it's called. There's also like a trumpet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most famous one. The popular one, I mean, it's like a trumpet type thing that they use to go along with very unique. That's probably the most unique that I've seen, at least as of yet. And they follow along with like the hits of, it's hard to explain. You'd have to like, I invite you to, I don't know if I'm sure there's some video of it somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, it's pretty funny. And then sometimes even like the fans will get really crazy. They'll like spit, like if you're like a bad guy or whatever and piss them off enough or something, like they'll like try to spit towards you or like throw stuff at you. It's like very intense.
You've talked about 14-year pro, very young age. You talked about Norman Smiley encouraging you to smile, but what would you say some of the lessons you've learned going through the business? Because you've said, there are obstacles and challenges that you had to face. I don't know if being Latin and trying to transition and learn the language and being familiar with the North American style is a challenge. Only you can talk of what that was. But what would you say over the course of your career up until this point you've found or kind of rolled with the punches and gotten better with?
My number one most difficult thing has always been the politicking side. In any situation, it's very, because I'm a very, very honest person, but in any like situation, like anything that's considered any political type of behavior to me is very hard to do. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a super honest person. So that has always been, from the very beginning, my number one thing, like, that has been the most difficult. Like, in-ring stuff, like, that's my work. I delve myself completely, like, literally tunnel vision, and I try to perfect it as much as I possibly can, and all of that. But then the other side of it, where with people, and, like, there's always, like, oh, well, you shouldn't say that, because that's not nice, or you're supposed to be this way, or supposed to be like this, or supposed to act like this, or whatever, like all the politicking, or you have to be like this with people, or this or that, and like, I don't know, that to me, that has always been the number one thing. But obviously throughout the years I've needed to learn that is where my hard work is at, in the politicking aspect. Like the ring stuff, that comes to me because I've always been an athlete and always very dedicated. So to me, honestly, my most struggle has been learning the whole politicking aspect.
Do you think that changes from promotion to promotion, or some places are just...
Yes.
Yeah? Okay.
Yes, because, of course, because every place is different. Every place has a different level of, like, how important politics are and all that. And clearly, WWE politicking, or at least at that time, I don't know now, but at least at that time, politicking was incredibly essential. Now, I see that from what I see, it's better, and here it's better. From like a colleague wrestler, fellow wrestlers and whatnot. From what I hear, is a little better or whatever. But there, it was like my biggest, like at that time, I was not prepared whatsoever to take on like the politics aspect of it.
We're talking what, like 5 years removed, 6 years removed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about it, but it's still something that I struggle with.
Yeah.
Like, I suppose it's because I've always been an athlete, so in my mind it's like, okay, work hard, try to be the best as you can, and you'll get rewarded as being the best you can. That doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. That's just like my athlete mentality since I've been an athlete since I was 8.
Right.
So like the expectation is completely, utterly different than an artist, and because we are pro athletes as artists, actors. So it's the trying to find that balance within that world is always a struggle.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on Powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at Powerslam.tv.
I've talked to wrestling promoters that often talk about, well, I look at the guys and girls that don't just, clock in, clock out, but come in, help set up the ring, have the conversations, show a willingness to, I don't know if that falls under politicking, but that willingness to improve and grow, those things kind of show like an overall, okay, I'm one of the boys, I'm one of the girls, and I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and do what's needed to do. If that can be a challenge, it's hard, I guess, and I can see where there's the other side of it. I work really hard for what I do. Why isn't that getting acknowledged? So I can respect that, but I think there's both sides of it to kind of look at, because from the promoter side, they're like, I know that this person offers so much. However, if you walk, not saying you, but others, if they walk around like they think they own the place, then it rubs people the wrong way. Now, Tough Enough lends itself several opportunities. Some of the current Raw has one of the Tough Enough competitors from the most recent one as part of the program now. But how did the opportunity all come about for you, and what led you to apply for a spot on the show?
I actually, when that came up, I was training MMA in Chicago, and I was actually on my way towards switching path, I would say. I was on my way towards switching to MMA, and I was starting to train, and I'd been training for like around 8 months at that time, and I was planning to debut for a company and a team and everything, and when that popped up, I just saw it as an opportunity to, at that time I believe I was 6 years into wrestling or so, or 6 or 7, and I thought in my head, that was a great opportunity. And I had only been there not very long, because I had gotten there from Puerto Rico here to the States from Puerto Rico. So it was the first legitimate opportunity that presented itself that I said, oh, well, I could finally do something, while here in the U.S. It was the first opportunity that popped up, big opportunity. So I said, you know what do I have to lose? Literally, I'm already planning to do this and planning to go on this road, but this would be a good opportunity to take if this is for me. So it was my last shot, to give to the whole wrestling journey that I had. So I did it, and thankfully I got chosen. Once that happened, I said, okay, well, here I have a big opportunity in front of me, and I just started training MMA, so let me exploit this opportunity as much as I possibly can, take advantage of this opportunity as much as I can, and if it finally something comes of it, then great, I can continue down this road, and it's the ultimate goal, and go continue on that, and it did. It happened. So I said, well, I literally only started training MMA, and I have already invested 6-7 years in sacrifices into this, so let me continue here.
Now, you said you had trained in FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, but it also transitioned to NXT. Now, I can say a lot of the fans north of the border here in Canada may not have had the opportunity to see the Sophia Cortez character, but how would you have described her being, and could you have seen, things worked out being what they could have been, having more legs and develop a little more?
Well, honestly, I was actually going to, before I was released, I was already on my way, I was scheduled to film my package to introduce my character. I was actually going to be that MMA female persona. And that got cut short due to Phil DeMont doing whatever he needed to do to get me out. But Sophia Cortez was as close to what I am now as I possibly could have made it with their approval.
Okay.
Because at that time it was still a flourishing thought of the whole anti-diva thing, which me and Paige, when we came together, that's what I had in my mind since I stepped foot there. So once she came in, it was like, to me, I thought, oh great, well she thinks, she has the same thought process. Let's, strength by numbers, let's get together, and that's how the whole anti-diva thing came up. And I was always constantly trying to think of ways that, things that I could present to them that I could do to break that mold. I wanted to color my hair. I wanted to do everything possible to, break that mold. There's very few things that they even approved of me. They even would want me to tone down, my persona, when I would talk, and different things. It was hard. It was hard for me to be what I wanted to be, to break that whole mold. Mm-hmm. But it was the closest I could get to it of what I am now, completely myself. There's not an inch of the word diva when you look at me. It's a pure wrestler, a pure athlete. Towards the end, I was actually scheduled to do that MMA gimmick and didn't happen.
Are you looking for the newest and hottest in the world of pro wrestling? Then check out the amazing action on powerslam.tv, the biggest indie pro wrestling channel in the world. Get over 6,000 hours of the best events from over 150 of your favorite promotions from 20 different countries around the globe. Brands like Progress Wrestling, Evolve Wrestling, Combat Zone, Defy, PCW Ultra, PWX, Over the Top, Shine, and hundreds of others with fresh content added every day for only $5.99 per month. Get your free trial today at powerslam.tv.
You had a chance to spread your wings with different promotions, working with Shine, and it also talks about you having a couple of opportunities with TNA. What did you walk away from one experience to the other for yourself? How was the environment?
What did I walk away with?
Yeah, how would you say the environment, the experiences were different? Because I'm sure personnel handles things so much differently. You just kind of alluded to it earlier, but the way they...
Well, at that time, again, it was hard for me to understand and deal with the whole politics thing and all of that. So when I was exploring opportunities, let's say with TNA and all that, it was still kind of a little bit of a struggle for me to figure out what the hell they mean with politicking and stuff. In my mind, it's go there, do the best job you possibly can, not bother anybody, be polite, and that's it. Well, I don't know. Apparently, that's not correct or whatever. I don't know. But either way, the whole another thing too is I don't know anybody. It's not oh, my uncle is from this and that, or my mother is this or that, or I'm a complete alien. So again, politicking comes from. There's many different aspects to politicking. There's an aspect to politicking where this person, so they're going to put a good word for you in. Or politicking aspect comes from, I'm going to be straight up. You just ask certain people so that they have good things to say about you. Or you are super, 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 chatty with everyone and, try to be, popular and, so people like you. And then they have good things to say about you, blah, blah, blah. It's I don't know. To me, it just feels like a high school. It's not natural to me or whatever. So I had to learn from that. So whole thing with TNA, it's always the same thing. I would always get, she's great in the ring. There's nothing that they could say about me in terms of my work, but apparently I didn't have enough conversations, or I don't know what. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's unfortunate because skill generally stands out. But I mean, it's sounding like there's a lot more walls to try and overcome, because you should just feel comfortable being yourself without somebody saying something to you or not making you feel a part of it. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry that that's been kind of the road that's kind of been in front of you.
Yeah, like it just kind of sucks. Is like apparently unless you have a conversation with every single person that crosses your path, you're somehow something or whatever, or rude, or you're somehow like however the hell it is that they take it or whatever, or I don't know, it's just like or because I was so focused on giving the best performance, the other girl had a chance to chat her way to more people and have more people get to know her, so they feel compelled to help her more or whatever. Like, so because I'm not all up in other people's business trying to talk to them and getting, and just focused on my work, like I get forgotten because of that, even though I can outshine the other person, or not necessarily just outshine, because if I'm more experienced there, and my job's not to outshine, and my job to carry them. So even if I were to even push that aside and carry them, still that doesn't mean anything because I didn't speak to enough people in the back.
Well, what about working with Shine? Because it felt like there were a lot of positives, at least from what I've read, lead me to believe that there were a number of positives that maybe came out of that experience. Or would you say it was very similar from promotion to promotion?
Shine was the one place that I was appreciated for my work more so than how many people I spoke to or who I spoke to or whatever. So that's why it worked out so great for me, and I had such a great experience there, and I was actually able finally to show who I really was in the business, and and then that's where all the match of the year, all the matches of the year came, and all that stuff, and it's like because I was finally allowed to have those opportunities to do that and all of that, not because of how many conversations I had or who I spoke to or just asked or whatever, but just of like the product that I was putting out there. And I will always forever be grateful for that, because to me that's what it's about. To me that's what I care for. That's what the most that I care for. Like I don't care how much money I can make somewhere or whatever. Like, for an example in Lucha Underground, that they have me as a girlfriend and all that, and I've spoken of how that doesn't interest me. It doesn't interest me to go out there and act and just and be in love stories and all this stuff. That's not what I've worked 13 years for. I've worked 13 years for to have opportunities to be able to show what I can do and to contribute to women's wrestling and create, awesome products.
Now, for some fans that have a bit of a harder time kind of understand it, maybe you can shed light on your perspective of it. So when Lucha Underground first came about, the idea of I guess in a major promotion, because I know it's kind of growing more on the independents, but having men and women face each other, and I mean the gender alone, the talent is exceptional, like just to watch the exchanges. But what have you found from the experience? Is it always something you've been familiar with and then now is just kind of rising to popularity, or is it because I mean there's videos that come out, women taking some really, really stiff bumps from guys, and whether it's a power bomb, and I'm like, I don't know how that in any world doesn't look like abuse. But when we look at the athleticism that can go on between them both, it is art, just like you had said. What's your opinion on that belief, or how it should be handled, or how's it done so that it's not careless, even if it may look sometimes like that?
Yeah, I think that I myself, honestly, intergender wrestling is not something that, even though like I've been doing it for a long time, and I actually prefer to wrestle guys than girls, but in a realistic standpoint, in the sense of like when if I were to choose, if I'm going to do a TV match, and if I were to choose to do a match between a guy and a girl on TV, or at least to me in my mind, you want it to be as realistic as possible. Like it's something that is very delicate. But I mean, like every time that I wrestle guys, I try to make it as realistic as possible. To me, that's the way that it makes sense the most to go for it. I mean, yeah, clearly in an art perspective, you can go out there and do literally whatever you want. Like exactly. Obviously, in an acting sense, you can go out there and do whatever you want. I could literally stand in the ring and get get my chest open, I fall on the floor, and oh my God, I act out. Like, there's a million different things you can do in an art perspective. But when it comes to professional wrestling, we're supposed to go out there and make what we're doing look as real as possible. And realistically, if I was in there with a 200-pound guy in a fight, you know, all it takes is for him to clock me one punch and I'm out. So realistically speaking, if I were to do a match where I'm wrestling such, you know, opponent, then I would have to make that match represent that reality as much as possible, as close as it can be, in order for, you know, for the person watching to even remotely care or invest in what they're looking at, because otherwise it's just going to be like, ah ha ha, look, that's funny. Or the opposite, oh my God, this guy is, you know, killing this woman, instead of, oh wow, look at this, you know, it's a story. It becomes a story if I make it as realistically as possible. Obviously, if I'm up against a 200-pound guy, I'm not going to try to, you know, overpower him. And even so, even if I was against a guy that was close to my size, he's still stronger than me, period. By genes, period. So he's still stronger than me, so I still would have to go, you know, by that realistic aspect. Anyway.
As part of the inaugural Trios champions, along with Son of Havoc and Angelico, must have come with a sense of pride because, you know, you're being rewarded for your overall contributions. What did the build to that match and the experience holding the championships mean to you?
Well, honestly, like, I broke my ankle for that match, so I didn't contribute to it as much as I would have wanted to. Yeah. It means more to me, but the matches before leading up to that, it was pretty cool. It's something that was put together as well, like last second. They saw that it worked, like our whole like storyline or whatever, or like the chemistry between the three of us, like, so they like just put it together. But I don't know, me personally, that was the first time I was ever put in like a team type of scenario. Most of my career I've been a singles competitor, so that was like the first time that I've been put in a team.
I've often heard when it comes to trying to work, I could just hear like a tag team is hard to try and get 4 people on the same page, but to try and get 6 people.
It's hard enough to get 2 people on the same page, imagine 6.
Yeah.
That is very difficult, very, very difficult.
The reason I asked that question about, you know, how it made you feel, because of everything it felt like you had gone through when you talked about politicking, that on a public stage you're being rewarded. And yeah, we can look at it as storyline, but we can also look at it as, you know, it's a triumph. It's, you know, Ivelisse coming out despite having to break her ankle, essentially, right, and giving her best. I guess the fan in me kind of looks at that in a different perspective, so I was just wondering to get your vibe on it, that's all. And now you talked a little bit about, you know, storyline wise, if like a 200-pound guy cracked you, but if now the opportunity came about for the Lucha Underground Championship, Mil Muertes, I'm Italian, so I'm not sure if I butchered the pronunciation on that, has, you know, a lot bigger. How did that experience come about, and how did you find that exchange?
That was great. He's a fellow Puerto Rican, coming from the same background, so we knew right away, you know, like, dude, let's make this work, let's make this awesome, and that clicked easily. We were on the same page from the get-go. There was no ego. We were on the same page in the sense that it was obvious that it was a David and Goliath scenario. And I kept thinking of ways of how I could project my David stance. And he was like, cool, great. And then I suggested a couple of things to him, and he was all for it. Honestly, he was one of the easiest people I've worked with ever. And I was very appreciative of that, because most of the time it's not like that when you're working with a guy. It's especially like a guy that's a monster, and like, I don't know, it's very rare. So I was really grateful that experience. And he was very understanding as well, that I had just come back from breaking my ankle, so I was a little little, hesitant. Because of my ankle, he's very, very, very easy to work with.
With the things that you've gone through professionally, and for anyone that's had to face the obstacles that you've had, what would you say to anyone either getting into this business that may be faced with either injury, obstacle, challenge, preventing them from moving forward? Because it hasn't stopped you. I mean, you've just looked for different avenues and to show your craft. What would you say to them, man, woman?
I really think it's down to like how bad you want it. It's been the hardest time of my life with the whole injury and all that. Especially when I've depended on my physical abilities for so long. Like, again, like I've been an athlete since I was 8. And like, it's the hardest thing, but, it's just it really is how bad you want it. Like, how bad you want it, how you can stay focused on not, on that positive, the possibility. Like, how stuck you can stay on that positive and the possibilities. Like, you create your own reality with your thoughts. So, like, literally, I would say like last week, I just finally have aligned my entire left leg from when I broke it twice. That I can actually move it exactly how I used to before. Like, exactly. So it's like, it's just being able to keep your focus on not letting yourself get distracted. I don't know how to explain it.
No, I think you're doing a great job.
I don't know how to explain it. Because it's just such a battle.
Well, you have to, but it's that, how bad do you want it? It's waking up knowing some mornings, why the hell am I doing this? and still getting on a stationary bike, right?
Yeah, having that patience, knowing that if you just keep going, like finding different, finding a way, there will be a way, and you will get better. And once you're, I don't know, it's just being tenacious. Again, like I said, just how bad you want it.
Yeah. What are your professional goals for the coming year and beyond?
I just want to gain, number one, I've always wanted to, have opportunities to make history in terms of, contributing to women's wrestling, to its credibility and this and that, but it seems that I always somehow get or whatnot from that. That's never changed. No matter what has ever happened, that's never changed. I always want to put, my dedication and ambition and all of that energy. I've always wanted to put it towards, making changes for the better. So if I can contribute in any way, shape, or form towards women's wrestling to make it better or anything like that, then that's what I want. Or even if I decided to go into MMA, then I would want the same thing with MMA, for an example. Like, anything I do, I always want to, reach for the skies and try to, knock down barriers and contribute. Like, I want to contribute as much as I can toward, great product and things that inspire people, and that's always been my goal.
Fantastic. On behalf of Ivelisse, this is Mark Madison for the Pro Wrestling Post podcast.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast with your host, Mark Madison. Once again, please visit ProWrestlingPost.com for interviews, blogs, and upcoming events in your area. And be sure to download the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Anchor, or whatever podcast app you prefer.